Thank you so much to Kartik Rao for joining me this morning. I'm Omar Oakes, editor of The Media Leader. Kartik, you've been CEO of Nielsen since September. For a few months, you were head of the audience measurement business at Nielsen, and before that, chief operating officer. And you've been at the company for a couple of decades. So you know the business quite well. I guess you've been thinking about this job for quite a while, if you ever had the opportunity. So what are you going to do with it? What's your mission as CEO?
Thank you. Nice to be here and see all of you. Yeah, it's been 23 years, and I stayed there this long because we're a 100-year-old company. This is our 100th year, and so it's a real honor to be the leader of the company on its 100th year to chart the next chapter. Our mission fundamentally has not changed. For media, it's all about following the consumer wherever and however she consumes media. That's all forms of it. And how do you turn that mission into products that are relevant to understand how consumers engage with, obviously, the content, because that's the first place that they go to, and then all the monetization that comes off of that, which is advertising, sponsorships, whatever else that comes from there. So for us, the mission is not any different. It's just the context we're in, and the transformation, obviously, that is taking place in how the consumer behavior is just moving so rapidly. And we have all kinds of sessions later today to talk about it. But for us, it's how do you help industries and markets grapple with that, with the truth about the consumer. That's really what we're about.
Yeah. And as Richard said in the introduction, both you and Kantar are owned by private equity. Elliott and Brookfields bought the business for something like $16 billion last year. I mean, that's putting it at quite a big valuation. I mean, how are you going to pay that back?
I don't think the valuation is high enough. They should have paid some more for the business. But look, we're really excited. So a couple of things about one of our owners is they were in our stock when we were a public company for a very long time. So it's good to work with owners who have studied your business, studied the industry you operate in, and have a real good visceral feel for what the opportunities and the challenges are. So I think nothing has changed about our mission, nothing has changed about our purpose, nothing has changed about our priorities, our product roadmap. So as far as my role walking in, working with new owners, it's largely about if we do what we believe is the right thing, which is about following the consumer and ultimately helping the industry take advantage of that, they should be really happy.
And we also, obviously, you've had this strong market position in the United States, where the bulk of your revenue comes from. But now you're facing increasing competition. We heard in the introduction that there is this movement to create a JIC, maybe not a JIC, it's debatable. As part of your growth strategy going forward, do you see the rest of the world as more of an opportunity? Are you under pressure to grow the business internationally versus the US?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things for us. Actually, on the rest of the schedule for today, you're going to see some increasingly amazing innovations taking place around the world in markets where we operate in. They're tending to be on the leading edge, actually, of being aligned with the vision we have about how do you actually follow the consumer. So it's a major source of innovation, inspiration for us. And I think that'll just continue to be the path that we're on. We operate in a lot of markets around the world. I think the next chapter for us has to be about bringing the best of what we call Nielsen One, the platform, which is our journey onto cross-media measurement, bringing that to as many markets as we can, as fast as we can. And Richard talked about all of the various components that you need to bring it to life. So we're a global company, and it's not just about audience measurement, which is one component of understanding the consumer engagement with content and ads, but it's also important that we have an amazing global metadata capability in a business called Gracenote, which helps with discovery of content, actually. And you can only imagine all of what that allows for from an AI and innovation perspective, to understand all of the reasons why consumers engage with content in a certain way. Metadata is the best way to do that. And we also have, around the world, a lot of expertise in the area of outcomes. And you'll keep hearing about these words, and they're words that'll endure for a long time in our space. But we're super excited about the portfolio we have and how global it is. And it's about bringing that to more markets in the right way. Very, very excited.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about Nielsen One, obviously. But before I do, I mean, Greystone, that must be an issue close to your heart, that a part of the business that's close to your heart because you used to run that. Is that something you see as a big opportunity for Nielsen going forward in terms of developing that? You mentioned AI capability.
Yeah, it's really important because one of the ways in which you understand the consumer is about what their discovery behavior is, and metadata that ultimately is used in AI models can help you predict. So that is a very important component of that. Where that then goes, obviously, is into, if you imagine a world where there's a lot of conversation around virtual IDs and humans being converted into IDs because of the need to do that in all systems, contextual targeting, contextual context of the humans that we measure and what they actually consume at a level of granularity, I think make a big difference in the world of targeting and activation as well. So there's multiple ways in which that business and capability can help all aspects of audience measurement as well as just discovery of content.
And how do you see the future of the panel? We spoke about it a bit yesterday. How do you see the future of the panel in this world of first-party data, streaming data, set-top box data? What's the role for the panel going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key for us is just, if you believe like where I began, it's about following the consumer. The consumer is not a device, is not a machine. So every measurement system, we believe, should have some foundation in actual people, and that's what panels represent. We can all have debates as to how big they need to be or how small they need to be, but in our rubric, it's inconceivable to have measurement systems that don't have some actual observation of human behavior in it. So we continue to think that is really important for many reasons, probably the biggest of which is ultimately being able to assign demographics as well as other characteristics that represent people in a home. So it's about the marriage of the two. It's big data plus panel. I think we've said this multiple times. And we want to use the best data available. We're not pedantic about panels being the only answer or big data. It is about using the best data available, but having the person represented in that, we believe, is fundamental to any measurement system.
So would you say that Nielsen has become too panel-centric? You've obviously built a cash cow, very lucrative business on panels, but would you say going forward you need to have less reliance on panels?
No, actually, it's more reliance on the hybrid of panels and big data. So in the US, for instance, and many of the presentations you're going to see today, many of our JIC partners are also using all sorts of big data as hybrids with panels. In the US, we have 60 million homes worth of big data from, you name whatever acronym of big data, we have it. So it's not about reducing our belief and reliance on it. It's about augmenting it with all forms of big data.
Okay. Let's talk about Nielsen One. What is the status of Nielsen One? You recently announced it's launched in Denmark. It's going to roll out to other markets globally. Can you give more details about that, what that rollout is going to look like, particularly in the US and other big Western markets?
Yeah, so it began in the US, and this year we launched Nielsen One for ads. So think about it as it is about cross-media measurement. It's a transformation to all of the components of cross-media. So think of the 4 screens, and it's about ads and content, right? So the ads version of that launched. We're continuing to iterate. It's out there. People are using it today. And the next version of that is the content version of Nielsen One. And so we want to make sure like we continue to bring that platform to every market that we operate in. Obviously, we'll work with the JICs to adapt it to what is right for the particular market. We're super excited about the work going on, obviously, in Denmark, which everyone is going to get to see a little later. But the intent for us is to work off of cross-media measurement. Ultimately is a journey. But journeys work well if you have a platform that can scale all around the world and adapt to all of the complexities, not just about data availability, but also around things like privacy, which is really important. And so for us, this is the platform by which all of our audience measurement development will continue to endure for a really long time.
You mentioned some of the factors that go into building such a platform. I mean, it does seem like it's sliding back. Timetables keep changing. I mean, why has that been? Have you been frustrated with that, or what are the reasons behind it?
Yeah, there's two things, and Richard talked about it before, right? Look, we're stewards of the consumer. We believe we're that, but in any market, you have to be a steward of the industry, especially if you're one of the main players in there. And to set the record straight, building of the product has not been delayed. It's about how do you drive the change management required in the industry, because it's really important for every constituency in the industry to get really used to how to work with it. What does the data look like? So it's about the change management, making sure the plumbing, which is incredibly important across the entire ecosystem, can actually ingest and digest all of that new capability. So it's two things, and everyone's going to say, it's about, you saw that, like we just want to do good work. Well, we did do a lot of good work, but we're not minimizing how much good work is needed to actually get the marketplace comfortable with what it's actually producing and what that means for their business, and that takes a little bit of time. So that's the difference between what was built and delivered and ultimately what is being accepted as either a currency or whatever form it's going to be used in from a client perspective.
The week before the upfronts, it appeared that you decided the data wasn't ready for primetime measurement. Last week, you delayed the closure of Pure Panel Metrics for, I think it was the second time, correct me if I'm wrong. Where are we now?
So again, just to make things clear, what we're actually talking about here is the change to the television currency. I want to be very specific. The television currency has been a panel-only based capability for decades. And we were bringing in all of this big data to augment the panel-only capability. It's a major shift. And to use it as a currency requires making sure that the entire ecosystem is very comfortable with it. And so the definition of comfort is two things. One, is it audited and accredited, because we fundamentally believe in that, and our clients ready and capable to actually ingest all of it, and are able to explain what changed to their internal constituencies, because that's the other component, right? So we felt like we clearly did not have the audits done back in April. We're going through that process now and continuing to work with clients so that it becomes what is used for transactions for the next season. Effectively, that's sort of where we're at. With regard to your question around delaying, taking away the metrics, it's related to the same thing, which is you want to move a market, ultimately, you want to move the metrics in a market to be way more granular. C3 is a little bit of a rolled up metric. It's an average metric in the US, and I don't want to bore people here with various metrics, but the idea is to make it more granular, and the market needs more time. We did a lot of research to figure out if they could actually use this much granularity, because everybody wants a lot more data and a lot more granularity. Can you actually use it, explain it, and take advantage of it is a whole nother question. So that's why we said, look, we're putting out the capability anyway, it's in there. We're just not going to take away what already exists. That's the only difference.
Okay, we have just over 5 minutes left. I want to throw it open to questions. If anyone in the audience has questions, don't worry if you don't. I've still got lots. Before I do that, let me ask you, why is Nielsen not part of this JIC initiative in the US?
Yeah, I think, look, it's an initiative of buyers and sellers, at least some buyers and some sellers coming together. Our entire premise is we want a system that actually enables and promotes the fidelity of what you're actually doing. So to do that, the first thing is it has to be inclusive of the entire industry. And I don't know where it is today, but it didn't have all the required, if you think about market share of video consumption, it did not have all the players in there. So we would be working with a system that's not complete for all of video consumption. So that was one. It wasn't completely inclusive of everybody there, and maybe they're continuing to work on that. But the second thing I think that's really important is we believe that the US is a self-regulated media market. It's written into the laws of how the market is supposed to operate. We honor that and respect that. And the Media Rating Council was set up to provide this, what I call audit and accreditation capability, so that buyers and sellers could understand what measurement capabilities were out there, what grade they were, do they follow a proper process. And so we invest a lot in that, and we just felt like the requirements in the JIC certification process did not honor all of the work we do in there, and we just didn't feel like that was a level playing field, because we want every currency contender to be measured by the same standard of quality, fidelity, endurance. And so we wanted to make sure that when we participate in anything, that the Media Rating Council and their rules and their process is well respected in that. And that wasn't the case, at least back in April.
Okay. Does anyone in the audience have a question for Karthik Rao? We've got one over there.
Hello. My children, when they were young, and I was racing with them down the pavement, would do this funny thing. You might have seen it. Where they
Sorry, is that microphone on? Or
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's better. Thank you.
My children, when they're racing, when they were little kids, they would run down a street, and they would try and, if the one was in front, they'd try and sort of jump in front of the other one to stop them making progress. I was interested to hear that you said nothing has changed in your priorities or roadmap under your leadership. Does that apply to Nielsen's extensive legal team?
Sorry,
could you repeat the end? Does that apply to
Nielsen's extensive legal team?
Could you clarify?
I mean, let's be open. There's a number of people in this room who regard it as a slightly dubious badge of honor to have acquired legal proceedings from Nielsen in the US. And so there's an interesting relationship between Nielsen and innovation in that market. So I'd love to know what your first meeting was like with your legal counsel.
It's all right. I'm going to try to play back the question I heard. Do we have a legal team? Is that the question? We have a legal team. Do we want to protect our intellectual property? We do. We're a world-ranked builder of IP, and we're going to do everything we can to protect that. So I think that was related to the question asked, but if you want to try again, I'm happy to.
Samir, does that? You might need to really spell it out.
Okay. As we've talked a lot about innovation in the past days, and we will do today as well. There are a lot of people in this room, probably wouldn't want me to name them, who feel that they have been encumbered by significant, extensive legal action over multiple years that slows down their momentum and slows down their ability to innovate. Sometimes, I'm sure they are brilliant, first-class Nielsen patents that absolutely you have a right to defend. Sometimes, maybe that's not the case. So I'm genuinely interested to know, when you say nothing has changed in your roadmap, does that also apply to your litigation strategy?
We will continue to protect our intellectual property vigorously around the world. That's just going to always be the case, and it's any company that invests this much in R&D and is a world-ranked intellectual property creator has to do that. And so that is going to be something that stays really front and center for how we operate.
Does anyone else have a question? Please don't fly back home wishing, oh, I wish I asked the CEO of Nielsen a question. No? Okay. Oh, no, someone's pointing. Sorry, I didn't see. Richard.
So this may be a technical question, but I'm intrigued by the fact that Nielsen One has launched Nielsen One Ads before Nielsen One Content, because a number of the GICs and currencies I work with around the world find content a lot easier to measure across platforms than ads, and ads is particularly tricky. So how have you cracked ads, and is there a reason why ads has been launched ahead of content?
Yeah, so a couple of things. You can still get, even on the ads platform, you do have program information in there. But if we had to do it over, we would have flipped the order. But we were trying to be responsive to what the marketplace needed. But I still feel and reflect back and say we got the order probably wrong. And so we're rapidly trying to make sure we get it back at the same playing field.
Okay, I'm going to squeeze in one last question at the risk of making us horribly late, if you don't mind. I just want to ask a quick question about ad spend measurement, something which people use in the UK, where I'm from, for Nielsen. What needs to improve with the way you measure digital ad spend? For years and years, agencies say that digital ad spend is undercounted. Why is that, and is any work being done to improve that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, unfortunately, it's a reflection of the complexity in the digital marketplace. Every company struggles with how do you get digital expenditure data right. So we're thinking increasingly about a partnership approach rather than trying to build our way out of all of it. But it's definitely an area of continuous improvement, I'd say, that we've got to continue to figure out because it's an increasing component of total expenditure. I think as long as you make progress in capturing the impressions, that's a big start. So we're obviously making progress in that around the world. But getting to the exact expenditure in terms of dollars and cents, you've got to rely a little bit on what is self-reported is probably another area where you could get a little bit more, but this is an area we got to continue to work on. It's not just unique to us, by the way, and anybody in the industry has the same challenge.
And final follow-up, it's not because it's just more difficult to count expenditure by smaller, medium-sized businesses who are maybe buying direct on platforms?
Yeah, that's right. It's part of it's because it's programmatic is a big component, and so there's a lot of intermediaries, and so how do you get, which part of the total expenditure, right, is a complex piece.
Okay, please give a hand for Kartik Rao. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.